Thank you guys for joining us on Diversity Chat, where we bridge the gap to diversity and we destroy ignorance before it destroys another life. And I have my guest with me today. Guest, if you could please introduce yourself. What's your name?
Shea, Stokesbury.
Shea. And where are you from, or where do you currently reside?
So I can't really say I'm from there, but I was born in Saudi Arabia. I grew up there. And then right now I'm in Richmond, Virginia. I've been here for 2 months.
Wow. How's it felt like 2 months?
It's gone by pretty quick, honestly.
Yeah. And then what ethnic group do you identify as?
I guess Caucasian.
I don't know. No, it's a weird question. Your husband said child of God, so.
Yep, that's a good answer.
And what's your age, if you're okay sharing your age?
26.
26. Great. So I know you from church. And just as soon as I met you and your husband, I was like, I like these people. These people is nice. And I appreciated that a lot. It mean a lot to me to be able to become friends with you. So I've definitely enjoyed our conversations in the past. And we've talked about diversity a little bit. You shared with me some interesting comments that you've received before when people find out that you're from Saudi Arabia or that you were born and raised there. Can you tell us what it's like, in Saudi Arabia? Just like inform us of the culture.
Yeah. So Saudi Arabia is a closed country. So recently they are accepting visitors visas. So that's like brand new, which is really cool. But there's no freedom of religion. All of the Saudi women they cover up fully, face, hair, everything, abaya, hijab, and then the men traditionally wear thobes, which are like long and white. The food is amazing. It's a very family-oriented culture. I loved growing up there. So granted, I did not grow up, I guess you could say, like fully immersed in Saudi Arabia. I was like a little subset on a camp. So say camp, some military camp. It's basically a camp of expats. So there's quite a handful of North Americans. There's quite a few North Americans, but they're from pretty much all different states. And then a lot of other Arab countries. So like Egypt, Lebanon, Jordan, and then you have people from Indonesia, Bangladesh, a few people that I grew up with. One girl was from Australia, UK. You really just get a big mix of people. And then in school, so I didn't actually go to school with any Saudis. They could go to our school on camp in kindergarten, and that was it. And the reason for that being was because they would want to then enforce separate everything. So separate, like even some of the Saudi students who went there in like for kindergarten, their parents were like, well, why are the boys and girls in the same choir class? Why are they in the same art class or PE? Everything should be separate. And so that's why I didn't go to school with any kids from Saudi. So in that regard, it's a little different. And so living on camp, we don't have to cover up. When we leave camp, we cover up. I lived on the beach. It's gorgeous. Lots of camels. You go sand duning instead of snow sledding.
What do you use to sand dune?
Some people would bring like boogie boards, or you could actually buy like these plastic like sheets with like little handles in them. Yeah.
I am just wondering, do you end up with a mouthful of like sand?
Sometimes if you kind of wipe out at the bottom, yes, there's sand everywhere.
A belly situation, or is it a bottom situation, or a back? Like how do you go down the
most people on like your belly, like head first.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
A lot of people wear like goggles because of their eyes, or like at least sunglasses.
That makes sense, because I'm just thinking how violently that sand would just smack you. Painful, but I would totally do it.
It's pretty fun. Yeah. No, it's pretty fun.
Well, thank you for telling us a little bit about Saudi Arabia, and I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right. Is it Saudi Arabia or Saudi?
Saudi. Mm-hmm.
Thank you for telling us a little bit about it, and when you said camp, you said not military camp?
Correct. So it's not it's not a military camp.
Yeah. What is it? Like, why do they call it a camp?
Because it's gated. You have to have an ID to get in. I think that's why. I mean, there's like military, like Saudi police around it, like at your entrance and exit points, so they check your IDs and everything. More as like a safety precaution, but honestly, it's probably like the safest place ever to grow up. Got to come home when the street lights turned on, and my parents were never worried. Just roamed around our camp.
Cool. Is it like everybody there has a common like perspective of living or something, and that's why it's a certain group of people living there?
I think so. Honestly, it's interesting too, because I probably have a little different perspective than somebody who moved there older and first lived somewhere else and then moved there. But since I was born there, it's kind of just like what I knew. Like, there's people from all sorts of cultures. There's people like all around you all the time. Everybody is speaking a different language. Everybody has different things that they do. It was always interesting, and so I think as a kid, you just see those things, and as a kid, unless you're taught something's bad, you don't think it's bad. You're just like, oh, that's cool. This is what you do. Oh, okay, cool. Like, and I think everybody was kind of, I describe it as like a little blissful bubble, because it was just like this conglomerate mix of people. And we all kind of, we all went to the same school. We all did the same things. We all had the same experiences. Oh yeah, when we go off camp and, go to the mall or go to the shops like downtown, all the girls have to cover up. Like, it's, I don't know how to describe it. It's just a small, like, close group knit of people. And for the most part, everyone's friends. Everyone's friendly. Everyone is not in their home, like their native home. Even though since I was born there, it was my home. But I feel like all like the parents and stuff who moved there for work, nobody's in their native home. Everybody has moved somewhere else. So people make friends, and that's their new normal. And you either accept it, and the different cultural things, they either don't bother you or they do. I mean, I don't know. As adults, some people like it, some people don't. So, or it just takes an adjustment period. If you're used to doing things one way, and then now it's okay. Especially like in America, we have a certain type of like, okay, it has to be done like this work ethic, this time period, da 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 da. We like to joke, like the famous saying in Saudi is inshallah, like everything, like, will it be done by this date? Inshallah, like, God willing. We'll see. Okay. So it in that regard, for people who work, it's if they're coming from the U.S., it's a little different. Some people find that hard. But again, like as a kid growing up, I didn't really know those things. It's not something that I was concerned about.
That's cool. And when you talk about, Holly's asking us what we're talking about. Holly, we are talking diversity. This is my friend Shea, and she is telling us about Saudi culture and herself, and introducing us to her. And that's what these diversity chats are about. So Shea, like, did you pick up other languages when you said there were so many different people? Do you speak any other languages?
Yeah, unfortunately, no. I barely know any Arabic. It's so bad. They actually didn't teach it in our school unless you spoke Arabic as a first language at home. Only those students got to take Arabic, like we would take an English class. And I remember when we were younger, my mom tried to push, like, I want my kids to take Arabic too. Like, why can't they take Arabic? Especially we were born there, like, as a little kid, we'd pick things up. They wouldn't let us. One of my friends, Nadine, tried to teach me Arabic. And she just got so caught up that I didn't have the correct accents. And it didn't go very well.
Is there a stigma or any kind of, like, shame put on people who don't speak Arabic and Saudi?
I mean, if you are Arab from any country, or you're, like, let's say, for example, my friend Nadine, who's Lebanese, when she would go back she went to boarding school in the U.S., and then she went back to Lebanon for college, and her Arabic was pretty rusty. And so, like, her family and, like, her friends would give her a hard time. But honestly, like, I've only had one person be like, what? You've grown up here and you don't know how to speak Arabic? And it's more of, like, a shameful thing for me. I'm like, yeah, it stinks. Like, I can, like, count to 10 and say, like, your normal greetings and things like that. But I guess, like, as far as, like, your regular daily life, I mean, we weren't allowed to take it in school, so it would have been all of my own extra curricular, trying to seek it out. And I mean, as a kid, I was just interested in sports and stuff, so that's not swimming, and I played baseball when I was a lot younger, then mainly swimming. But so I'd say, I mean, and honestly, everyone knows a little bit of English, whether you're from Saudi or Lebanon or Bangladesh or, you know, the Philippines. Most people know some English. So you're very privileged knowing English, that everyone in the world speaks some English for the most part. Okay.
That makes sense. That's interesting use of the word privilege. I've been hearing it used differently in ways that, like, you know what, that's true. So I like that. How old were you when you moved to the States, and what was it like transitioning to, are we called Western culture? Yeah.
Western culture, yep. So I went to boarding school as a sophomore in high school. And so that was even though my parents still lived in Saudi and I would go back on breaks, I guess as a sophomore in high school is when I started actually living in the U.S.
Yeah. Was it hard to adjust?
Your question?
Well, I was curious what the adjustment was like for the culture.
It definitely was different. I would say there was just a lot of concerns or a lot of things that were brought to attention that I really wasn't aware of were, like, a big deal. I mean, one is, like, high school, normal high school stuff. Whereas in Saudi, like, honestly, everyone, it was just like a little bubble, like I said, so everything was really pretty easygoing. But then I would say the most, like, distinctive thing that I recall was, so went to a student center, and I'm with, like, some classmates, and I'm thinking, okay, like, I'm making friends, and this is, like, okay, like, I'm getting out there, you know, and then one of the girls says, okay, so Shea, how does it feel to be the minority? And I was so lost. I had no idea what she was talking about. And then one of the other girls, she was like, oh, yeah, you're the only white person in here. And it just, like, at that, I had no idea that was something to be, like, thought of. That was something to, like, point out and separate people by. I didn't see people that way. I didn't think of it. It didn't cross my mind that it would be a big deal or an issue. And that kind of, like, stood out for me and made me feel like, okay, I don't understand really what's going on here. Like, I'm clearly missing something by not growing up in the U.S.
Wow. I feel embarrassed for Americans right now. Just kidding.
I mean, but to say there's still, like, racism in a lot of other countries. I think it's just this little conglomerate mix of a bubble that I grew up in, that it didn't seem as prevalent. Mm-hmm. I mean, and granted, I'm sure other people have different experiences, but my parents never talked about, I didn't grow up with my parents saying, like, anything derogatory about one specific race or another. That's just, okay, yeah, that's that person. Oh, they work in the hospital, or they do this, or whatever. My parents didn't like to distinguish between, like, oh, just because someone has this job doesn't mean you need to treat them with less respect than you would someone with this job. You know, and I'm saying that, like, not that my parents specifically came out and said that, but in Saudi Arabia, everyone has people who, like, clean your house. And actually, you are thought of as, if you don't hire someone to clean your house, you're thought of as stingy. Like, really, you can't pay someone to clean your house because, you know, all that money is going back to their families. And, like, so Nick was our housekeeper, and I, like, knew him pretty much the entire time I grew up in Saudi. He actually retired and went home a few years ago, and his kids went to college in the U.S. And but I remember, like, the common, like, term over there would be a house boy, and my dad was like, no, this is not a boy. He is a man. You can say my housekeeper or Nick. You say his name. Like, he was very like, no, that sounds really disrespectful, and I don't like that. So that was something that, you know, I think, so I don't, you know, I can't speak for everyone who grew up in Saudi Arabia, but that was just, this has been my experience.
Yeah, and that's what we want to hear about, is your story. We want to hear your voice, so thank you for sharing that. It's very interesting. Do your parents speak Arabic?
No, I mean, my dad probably speaks more than, like, I do. Yeah. But not fluently or anything like that, because he has actually been, like, at where he works, at the gas plant that he works at, he has been the only North American working in that gas plant for, like, the last maybe, like, 10 years. He pretty much works with all Saudis, and then a couple people from India. There was a man from, I think he was from South Korea or Japan. I honestly can't remember right now. But he retired maybe, like, 5 or 6 years ago. So you definitely pick it up if you're working with, you know, if your daily life is with Saudis, because they'll speak Arabic to each other. But I wouldn't say he's fluent, but he knows a lot more than I do.
And I might butcher this, I might have it wrong, but is Habibi part of that language? Did I say that?
Habibi. Yes, Habibi.
Yeah. Habibi. I love that.
Yes.
That's my dad.
Yes. That's what who?
My dad. What is it? What does it mean again?
So, you know how some words don't really have like a very good English translation.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a term of endearment, and it is like masculine and feminine. So Habibi is masculine and Habibti is feminine. So it's like my loved one, or like my dear, or something along those lines. Like I said, there's not an exact translation.
Yeah.
Like friends will say it amongst each other, or like if you're talking to like someone who's younger than you, who's like a sibling or like a family friend, or so kind of similar.
Yeah, I love that. One of my friends from Egypt said that to me too. I think it's really cool. I like learning different languages, but I pretty much just know how to say hi to people in different languages. But I still think it's important to learn about different cultures, different people, and that's why we're having these chats.
100%.
Because,
mm-hmm.
I don't like the idea that maybe there's one voice speaking on behalf of a whole people group, or, you see people that look a certain way, and then they're all grouping everybody that way. So, I have our friend Emily on here too, and I asked her, how do you feel like people see you in the world? And I'm curious what your answer is.
How do people see me in the world?
Yeah, how do you think people see you?
Question. I'm sorry?
It's an easy question.
No, that's not an easy question. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. In high school, I remember hearing that people would say I was stuck up because I didn't talk very much. But that was more so just because I think I was like, I didn't really feel like I fit in. I don't know. People definitely don't expect that I grew up in Saudi Arabia.
Mm-hmm. Why?
Because I'm white and I'm blonde.
You told me someone said something ignorant to you about that before. I don't know if you want to share.
Yeah, I definitely have been. If I mention that I grew up in Saudi Arabia, I have gotten the question of, well, why aren't you brown? Mm-hmm. And then sometimes if people ask more questions, they automatically and they're like, oh, so your parents work for an oil company? Oh, that means you're rich. And it's so shocking that people say those things to you, because you're like, no, I don't, I'm not saying we're poor, but I've had a very blessed life, 100%. But it just is interesting, the initial things that come out of people's mouths when you share, I don't know.
Yeah. A lot of stereotypes. Yeah, cool. Have you ever felt misunderstood? And if so, how do you handle that?
I mean, I've definitely felt misunderstood. I may depending on, I think it depends how someone is approaching me and the misunderstanding. If it's just really chaotic, I kind of just okay, not sure there's a point of me trying to explain something. That person's going to have their opinion, and that's just going to be that. But if if it's someone that's misunderstanding but seems like more interested or trying to understand, then I'll just try to explain it maybe in a different way. I don't want to cause an argument over something that is probably small and a misunderstanding. And then as I've gotten older, sometimes I'll just pray about those things and just be like, okay, how can I talk about this in the future, or even pray like that person, their heart is softened in that area, or that somebody else comes into their life and can, open their eyes to something new.
Yeah. I love that you said that about maybe not saying something, because I think there's a lot of people that are trying to put words in people's mouths when they don't say anything. So it's this weird balance of, I guess, the need for conversation so that people, and I mean outside of those emotional situations where someone may attack someone else, but the conversation so you can hear someone's heart, so you understand why they maybe don't say something. Not everybody wants a confrontation or is about drama. So they might just, I'm backing out the room slowly right now. I'm not engaging because I'm just not a fighting kind of, person, or I pick my battles wisely. And I think that should be respected. I know our time is definitely come to the 30-minute marker. So I'm going to do my closing. And then if you have any closing thoughts of encouragement or anything like that, please do share it. But I want to thank you, Shea, for joining me. I want to thank everybody who tuned in, and thank you, Holy Spirit. Thank you, Heavenly Father, for this working, because we tried Zoom, we tried Facebook Live a different way, and thank you, Shea, for your patience. That is the fruit of the Holy Spirit working in your life. Okay, you're really saved. Okay. And I'm going to invite everybody to join us in the next diversity chat, where we destroy ignorance before it destroys us. And then, Shea, did you have any closing remarks or encouragement or anything you want to say?
Maybe I encourage people to, especially what's going on right now and all of the high, intense emotions and just everything that's going on, just remember that people are probably more similar than you think. You may have different upbringings, you may have different, even views on things, but you probably could find a lot of similarities with different struggles, or just because one person's struggling about one thing, somebody else might be struggling about another thing. And remember that people are more than just their outside appearance. I've definitely met people, and I have been surprised by okay, that's where they're coming from, or I didn't know that about that person, and right. It's not just because someone doesn't share all of them right at the beginning doesn't mean that there's not a lot more inside. And I encourage people to look at people's hearts first before their outside, because that's truly what matters, is the heart and to love people. And I think we all need a little extra love, especially in this crazy time in our country.
Definitely. Well, that was really well said. Thank you for saying that. Again, thank you for joining us, everybody.
Thanks for having me.
Yes. And I hope you guys all have a blessed evening, and we'll see you later.